Hello? Hello? Is this thing on? Ha! I'm just kidding. Of course it's on. I know how to use technology. Hi folks, Owen DeBiase here from Singing Dragon Analytics, wishing you all a very happy holiday season. So as we approach the new year, I've been thinking a lot about ways to improve the channel, and ways to bring more and more interesting content to all our loyal viewers out there. To that end, one of the things I'm going to try and do throughout the next year is a series of semi-regular vlogs, so we can talk to you in a more informal setting. These will feature discussions about varieties of things, math, music, my compositional philosophy, really whatever I feel like talking about, and anything you guys would like to hear. So if you are interested, if there's anything you would like to hear me talk about, and this goes for the By the Numbers series as well, which will feature more formal analysis than obviously the vlogs will. Please post it in the comments below, and I'll do my best to respond to what you're looking for. So today I wanted to talk about a news article I saw recently, which discussed work that was being done at the University of Toronto. And this work is very interesting because it comes at the intersection of some of my favorite things, machine learning and Christmas music. So what they've done is they've created what they call neural karaoke. The researchers have trained a neural network to on hundreds and hundreds of hours of music to take a still image, and from that still image extrapolate and compose a new song that features various elements from the image and is somehow relevant. It also composes lyrics and sings the lyrics itself. And they've put together several videos, the most popular of which is the one that I saw in the article and will play now.
A fairy tale, a Christmas tree. There are lots and lots and lots of flowers.
So that was fun, wasn't it? If you're interested, I'll post the link to the full video in the description. Now, obviously it's no Jingle Bells, but it's still very impressive. It's amazing we've come to the point where you can have a computer not only compose music, but compose lyrics as well and sing those lyrics. Now, the singing technology obviously is a bit iffy. So I'm actually, frankly, quite surprised. We've been working for decades on creating computers to mimic the human voice, but speaking-wise, we're getting pretty close. But singing-wise, we're still a ways off, apparently. Now, the music itself is also interesting. I think it's kind of fun. The non-traditional side of me, if any of you have listened to my music, you'll realize I have a strong sort of modernist and serialist streak. And this music has a kind of simultaneously traditional and non-traditional and somewhat disjunct tone that I find just interesting and kind of fun. But it's also very alien. And this is actually what I want to talk about. Not so much about the technology, because the technology is clearly very impressive, and I'm sure it's only going to get better and better from here. But I want to talk about more the use of algorithms and mathematical devices in composition, because this is something that I think about a lot as a composer. As I said, I like to incorporate elements of serialism into my music. However, now, let me take a step back. For those of you who don't know, serialism is a compositional technique where basically you use algorithms and rules and patterns to dictate how you create the music. Sorry for the jump cut there. I stumbled over my words a bit. So as I was saying, serialism goes back to the Second Viennese School, where the composers Schoenberg, Berg, and Webern were working on developing techniques that would allow them to move further away from traditional tonal harmony. They talked about things like emancipating dissonance and removing emotionality, although I would caution against that because I think that proper practicing does not completely remove emotionality, which is what I'll get to in a moment. But they developed what they call a 12-tone technique, which is where you take a set of all 12 chromatic pitches, arrange them, and then use mathematical transformations to create a matrix of tone rows. Then you select a tone row and basically follow through the tone row, and that becomes your melody and your harmony and your counter melody. So essentially they're using mathematics, they're incorporating advanced mathematics into the compositional process while simultaneously using those techniques to create a wholly different musical language, or at least musical sound. And it's very interesting. The problem is that, and this is what happened, the natural extension of this is to start serializing, so creating procedures to create every single element of the music. Or, even at a more basic level, to simply jot down tone rows. So, right, you choose the prime row, and then inversion 4, then retrograde 3, and just write them one after the other, and that's your music. Now, this leads to certainly academically interesting music, but not necessarily emotionally interesting music. What happens when you use serialism by rote is that you generate a lot of music very quickly, but the music has no soul to it. It is beneficial to have the hand of the composer still in the music. Because if you were just copying down tone rows, it would sound very interesting. You would have emancipation of the dissonance, and you would have something that you would not get using traditional tonal harmonies. However, it would be very mechanical, barring the creativity that goes into creating the tone row itself. It would be fairly mechanical and would not necessarily have any emotional significance to it. Now, if you look at the work that Schoenberg actually did, a lot of his work is very intentional, has a lot of melody to it, has structural elements. You can see Schoenberg's hand and Schoenberg's intentionality in the music. And I think that that is really what it comes down to, is that we have this set of tools from the Second Viennese School and really from the entire 20th century, some of which are very academically interesting in their own right, some of which are less academically interesting, some of which are very musically interesting, some of which are less musically interesting. But we have a whole set of tools. And I think as a composer, we can use all those tools together and apply them, but not necessarily with strict adherence to a set of rules that were created when those techniques were conceived by their original inventors. Rather, we want to use those techniques the same way we would use counterpoint or traditional harmony, and apply the rules and the techniques to the extent they are useful, but at the same time not be afraid to step in and make changes and do things to add emotionality or add our own voice back into the work. Schoenberg is very good for this. I personally am a fan of Stravinsky, and especially Stravinsky's later works. If you look at something like The Owl and the Pussycat, which is this beautiful little art song he did, he uses 12-tone technique, but he does it in a way that's very playful. So suddenly, it's not just copying down tone rows, it's using tone rows to create a particular type of sonic impression that is non-tonal in nature, and then matching that to the text in the way that best fits the poetry. And that's what we can do. So bringing this back round to the video we saw earlier, I think what we're seeing here is that certainly it is using a lot of traditional tonal elements and traditional sort of pop song elements, Christmas carol elements, melody, homophony, that sort of stuff. But it's doing it in a way that is basically not saying it's removing emotionality. It's rather borrowing all the emotionality and intentionality from the past and following those sets of rules. So really you're dealing with another set of rules. It's a little bit more complex and therefore creates a little more variety and maybe is a little bit more palatable because it's based on a whole vast amount of music that is very popular, but it's still a set of rules. And I think that even as this technology gets better and better and better, what we're going to see is that even though it may be fun and may be good to listen to, it certainly is academically very, very interesting from both a musical standpoint and a machine learning standpoint. But what we'll see is that there's still place for the hand of the composer in the music, because it's really the human emotionality at the end of the day. Not to say that the music will be unlistenable, it'll be very listenable, it might even be enjoyable, but to be very powerful, it's still the individual, I feel, and more to the point, the human spirit, which makes the music interesting and powerful. Sorry, hope I didn't repeat words too many times there. So, I don't know if you found that interesting or not. I hope you did. So before I wrap up, I'd like to talk about a few other things going on the various channels across the Singing Dragon network. First of all, for those of you who may be following Singing Dragon Entertainment, our new channel, which is going to have our more narrative-based content, you will have seen the trailer for The Telltale Heart. Yes, we did say it'd be out by November. Obviously, it's not. It's December now. We've had some production setbacks. It's taking longer than we hoped. However, we are still working on that project. We still fully anticipate releasing it in the very near future. Well, relatively near future. Hopefully by the end of this month, possibly sometime early next year. It all depends. Really what this comes down to is we are working and taking the time to produce the best content we can, highest quality for the viewers, you guys. So thank you for your patience, and just stick in there. It'll be there soon, and keep on checking back on the channel and subscribing. Click that little bell button, I guess is the new thing on YouTube, and subscribe to the channels and all that good stuff. Also on Singing Dragon Analytics, there will be more by the numbers to come. Our next one is going to be for the Christmas movie fantastic season, the big blockbuster season of the year. We're going to have a superhero themed by the numbers. We're going to look at the previous box office and other factors from the big Hollywood superhero movies going all the way back to 2000. We're going to try and build a regression model and some other models to try and predict both box office and critical success based on a variety of factors. In addition to that, we also have a new series coming out, which I'm not going to tell you about just yet, but look for it at the new year. And other than that, I hope to have another blog out before the end of the year. If not, then I wish you all a very, very happy holiday season and a happy new year. And as always, thank you so much for watching our videos. We really appreciate it, and we hope it's entertaining for you guys and informative. Thank you, guys. Bye.